Husband is furious I stood up for our daughter after he shamed her for rejecting a boy. Hi, y'all. My husband and I have been arguing about this all day, and I need some outside perspective. My husband picked my daughter, Cindy, up from school, and he saw her speaking to a schoolmate that she had previously had a crush on. For context, last year during a sleepover, my husband and I overheard Cindy's friends lightly teasing her over having a crush on this boy. My husband also gently teased her with some innocent jokes like Cindy and boy sitting in a tree, KISSING, type of silliness, and he sometimes brings it up randomly to tease her. Stuff like asking her if she wants to invite her boyfriend when we go out on family outings. She never actually dated him or is even friends with him as far as we know. Her dad just likes to tease her. Anyway, apparently, over the summer, the boy was injured in an accident and he missed the first couple of weeks of school as a result. When my husband was picking her up, he saw them talking and noticed that the boy had significant scarring on his face and hand. When he asked her what happened to him and what they were talking about, saying that the boy looked disappointed, she explained to him about his accident and that he was just asking her out on a date, but that she turned him down. My husband was furious at her and scolded her for being so shallow as to reject him because his appearance has changed. Cindy was crying when she got home. She told me all this and insisted she was polite when turning him down and was just not interested in him romantically anymore. I told my husband to apologize to my daughter and that he never should have made her feel bad for turning down anyone's romantic advances. I told him that our daughter is old enough to decide who she is attracted to, and it would be cruel of her to have said yes out of pity, thus leading him on. My husband is now saying that he sees me differently and that I should be ashamed for teaching Cindy to be a shallow monster and ableist. He is also angry that I undermined him when he was scolding our daughter and says we should not undermine each other's authority when disciplining our child. I was not doing it to undermine him. I just think it's not healthy to make our daughter feel guilty and shamed for not being interested in someone. I do feel bad for the boy, but I don't think it is anyone's place, neither mine nor my husband's, to tell Cindy she has to date someone or she's a bad person. Am I the a-hole? No. OP. You are not the a-hole. Your daughter has every right to decide who she is or isn't romantically interested in, and the idea that rejecting someone makes her a shallow monster is completely unfair. Your husband is wrong. He shamed Cindy for making a personal decision and is teaching her a dangerous lesson that she's obligated to say yes to someone just to avoid hurting their feelings. That is not how healthy relationships work. Cindy did nothing wrong. She was polite, honest, and didn't lead the boy on. That's exactly how rejection should be handled. And regardless of what your husband thinks, no one owes anybody else any romantic interest no matter the circumstances. I think your husband does need to apologize. Cindy has full autonomy over her heart. And just to be clear, if the situation was reversed, the same logic would apply. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments. Nerdy Swamp Witch 40 says, not the a-hole. Just because Cindy may or may not have had a crush on this boy last year doesn't mean she always would, especially after not being around him all summer. Your husband made a massive leap in assuming the only reason Cindy isn't interested anymore is the boy's scarring. He didn't talk to her. He jumped on her and pushed an unfortunate narrative that Cindy owes this boy her attention. She does not. You need to point out to your husband that what is ableist is insisting that Cindy date a boy purely because he now has scarring, and she can't turn him down because he deserves it to make up for what happened to him. That's a gross way to look at disability. If he has concerns about Cindy judging only on appearances, he could have had a calm and recent conversation with her. He chose not to. That's on him. Imaginary Bag 5385 says, not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but your husband seems shockingly immature in this case. He teased your daughter the way children do. He got hurt on behalf of the boy thinking it was due to his scarring and forgetting that youth crushes sometimes last for a week. Maybe he sees his vulnerable self in that boy, but he can't let himself be so emotionally affected that he's unable to understand the nature of his daughter's crush and respect her decision. He's literally acting like a boy mid-puberty who got rejected, who can't accept that loss of feelings isn't a mistake you actively make due to personal flaws. NMB4 Christmas says, not the a-hole. Your husband is a controlling, immature a-hole. Literally nothing he's done in this situation is okay. Starting with the initial teasing about her liking the boy, he's just plain gross. The next Mae West says, intentionally or not, he's training her that she's not allowed to say no unless she has a reason he thinks is good enough regardless of her feelings, and that he cares more about some kid he doesn't know than his own daughter. He's setting her up for getting involved with and or sleeping with people she doesn't want to because she's afraid she's not supposed to say no because it's rude or hurtful. It happened to me, and it'll happen to her if you let him keep this up. Edit. Wow. I did not anticipate this getting so many responses when I wrote it last night before bed. I'm trying to read through all the replies so I can approach this with my husband again later today. I'm also going to have a talk privately with Cindy about the situation. Thank you so much for all the responses. I feel more confident now in my choice to defend Cindy. Also, my husband is not a bad guy. He didn't tease Cindy to hurt her. It was to be playful, and Cindy didn't seem to be bothered by it. She would usually brush him off when he made those jokes. I think my husband was short-sighted when it came to this situation, but he is not a bad father, and he really loves me and his daughter even if he makes mistakes sometimes. The community agrees that OP is not the end. They seem to be helpful as OP is getting ready to talk to her husband. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Hi, everyone. I got a lot of responses yesterday, and I thought I should update on what happened since I posted. I wanted to address some things first that I saw in the replies. Many comments were either implying or outright saying that if my daughter's reasons for turning down the boy, I'll call him Sam for this post, were primarily because of the change in appearance after his accident, then that would mean my husband was right and that she was a shallow monster and I was enabling her. This didn't sit right with me and hurt to hear, but people also pointed out that if the roles were reversed, and it was my daughter whose appearance had changed and was then rejected by a boy, then I would probably be livid at that boy, right? These comments stuck with me and really made me think more deeply about this whole situation. And I'm really glad I was asked these things because it made me realize what lessons I wanted my daughter to get from this situation. I realized that although I would be upset if this happened to my daughter, I would not be upset at someone for rejecting her so long as they treat her with respect and dignity. I would be upset at the unfair situation she was in, but I would never expect some random person to make it their mission to rectify this injustice at the expense of their own autonomy. I would instead comfort my daughter and explain to her that people are like puzzle pieces. Not all of them fit together. I would say that just because a boy she liked wasn't her puzzle piece does not make her any less valuable or beautiful. And one day she might find someone who does fit well with her. The lesson I wanted my daughter to learn from this was that she was not shallow for rejecting someone romantically regardless of the reason, even if it was physical, that everyone is owed human decency and respect, but not romantic affection. Denying someone equal respect and dignity because of their appearance would be shallow, but she did not do that. Her romantic affection is not a commodity to be distributed. It belonged to her, and she is not obligated to be fair when it comes to who she wants to share it with. It belongs to her alone, and his comments really made me realize how important it is for Cindy to feel like her consent matters. Because what could start with just going on a date she doesn't want to go on, could one day escalate into her being pressured or coerced into dangerous and traumatizing situations or abusive relationships. So thank you so much to the commenters who shared their stories, which helped me realize how important this was. Some people claimed that I would likely leave my husband if his appearance changed, but sorry to disappoint you guys because I would never do such a thing. I love my husband so much. My relationship with him is stronger than just dating or a crush. We built a life together and his appearance changing would not change that. We have been married for long enough that my attraction to him and love for him now go far deeper than looks. Maybe it would be a different story if we were just dating and barely knew each other. But things change once you make vows to each other to stick together in sickness or in hell. Many people are claiming that my husband is a monster and abusive. It may seem that way if all you know about him is this one situation, but he is a full human being. He does more for this family every day than I could ever express in one post. He has issues with anger and that he often says things he regrets during. But when he cools off, he is always open to listening and communication. I know now how damaging his teasing of Cindy about Sam was last year, and I will make sure that doesn't happen again. But I assure you, all that this is something he has done out of ignorance and not malice. He loves Cindy to bits and would never intentionally do something to harm her. Okay, on to what happened yesterday. My husband woke up and left the house early, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. When Cindy woke up, I made sure she was okay and told her I wanted to talk to her about what happened to the day before. Her friend's mom gave her a ride home and she got here before my husband did, so we were able to have a heart-to-heart. I told her that she doesn't need to explain to me or anyone why she changed her mind about Sam. And I explained to her all the things I mentioned above, that Sam is going through something very hard and she should be kind to him, but she does not owe him a date if she is not interested in him romantically, that she isn't shallow and should never feel pressured to do something with someone she doesn't want to do, and that her dad was upset and said things he didn't mean. Even so, he still loves her and so do I. She was starting to cry, so I held her for a while. She told me she was upset more than anything, that her dad thinks of her as a bad person. This broke my heart, and so I told her I would talk to Dad about this when he gets home. When my husband got home, I told him we needed to talk about yesterday. He didn't want to at first, but I insisted and told him it was about Cindy's well-being as she was still upset about it and even thinks that her own father thinks she is a bad person. This upset him and he said, of course, he didn't think that. I basically explained to him my thoughts above, And although he was a bit resistant at first and insisted that he just didn't want Cindy to become a shallow person, he really listened when I explained to him how people might take advantage of her in the future if she starts to feel like her consent and her desires don't matter. I didn't show him the post I made, but wrote down some of the comments and stories and told them to him. I told him they were stories I found on Reddit from people who experienced something similar. I didn't show him my post because so many comments were unfairly painting him as a monster, and I was worried it would make him defensive. I think it broke through to him because he was really upset at the thought of our daughter one day being manipulated into staying with someone who was hurting her. He went to talk to her privately in her room while I prepared dinner, and afterwards, she seemed a lot happier and was joking around with her dad again. Today, they were both planning to go bowling together as well. Thank you everyone for the advice, the stories, and for motivating me to stick to my decision to defend Cindy. You guys are awesome. Well, OPEF, there's not much for me to say because I think you've done great here and this is a great update. So here's wishing you and your family the best in the future. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit, Am I the A-hole? And it's by user HumanBell9063. Am I the A-hole for shutting off my Wi-Fi at night? So let's begin from the beginning. I moved into my new apartment in July of last year and no one lived below me for a couple of months. After a couple of months, a guy moved in. The first thing I have experienced from him was blasting his music so loudly that it sounded like it was coming from my apartment as well as vibrating my floors and walls. I have never met him before this, and after that, I asked him to just try to keep it quiet after 11 p.m. as that is around the time I go to bed. Very frequently, he does not shut it off after 11, and I get woken up at 3 a.m. to it. There was even a time where I had to miss 4 hours of my scheduled hours at work because he played it until 4 in the morning, and I couldn't sleep and had to get up at 5:30 for work to work a 12-hour shift. I have had minimal contact with them for the occasional neighbor stuff like, can you grab my package off the porch so it doesn't get stolen, etc. Well, a couple of days ago, he asked me to use my Wi-Fi for a couple of days until he can pay his own Wi-Fi. I allow him to use it for free of charge because I know we are all struggling in this economy. However, I have this deep fear of a fire happening at my house, so I unplug everything at night that is not being used. Wi-Fi being one of them as I do not need it when I'm sleeping. I woke up this morning to messages from the neighbor that are so disrespectful about the Wi-Fi not being on. Am I the a-hole? No. OP. You are not the a-hole. You did your neighbor a favor by letting him use your Wi-Fi for free and he has the nerve to be an ass when you turned it off at night? Absolutely not. This guy has already been a terrible neighbor blasting music all night, disrupting your sleep and even causing you to miss work. The fact that you still tried to help him despite all that shows way more generosity than he deserves. And what do you despite all that shows way more generosity than he deserves? And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section. And now let's check out the community comments. Baby Nicole says, not the a-hole. He don't have the rights to complain because he is not paying for it. Plus, his blasting music is so annoying. Like, no respect for his neighbors who are tired from working. He is even lucky that you are helping him even though it's just Wi-Fi. Annotated Kate says, not the but you are a little dumb. You had a perfect bargaining chip and you threw it away. You can use my Wi-Fi if you stop being noisy between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. It is weird that you unplug your Wi-Fi at night, but ultimately you can do whatever you please with it because it's yours. I have a hard time believing that you're actually questioning this. Like, what am I missing? The guy can pound sand. Beggars can't be choosers. And OP responds, I mean, you aren't wrong. I did have the perfect bargaining chip. I mean, I guess it is weird, but I grew up in a household where we unplugged everything not being used, so it was less of a chance of a fire. I grew up in a firefighting home where their worst fear was a fire starting at our home. So I guess I just got used to it and have been doing it into adulthood. I mean, I'm technically not questioning it per se. I would like to say I'm not the a-hole, but I could be biased with my thinking as it is about me, so I wanted to get outside opinions. And says, not the a-hole, but you need therapy if you are this easy to walk over. And responds, currently in therapy and working through my people-pleasing tendencies. The community agrees that is not the a-hole. So now let's check out the update to see how the story ends. Thank you for all of your replies. I have decided to change my Wi-Fi password and not allow him to use it. A little more background though on a couple of things though. So the apartment I live in is more of a duplex, so there is only me upstairs and the downstairs neighbor who lives here. As for the noise complaint, I have called the police and the only thing that happens is he will turn the music off when they come, but the next day it is back to being on. I have learned there is some battles worth fighting, and this one isn't worth my battle as it is never going to change no matter how I go about it. As for the whole letting him use the Wi-Fi thing is that I don't want to cause issues while I'm living here, and I want to keep the peace as to not make things worse when they are. However, At this point, I have done everything to keep the peace and none of it does not seem to be working, so I might as well just be in a hole. Final update. The Wi-Fi password has been changed and Wi-Fi name has been changed. I don't think he appreciated that because he blew my phone up while I was in class, then just texted me bet when I did not answer. I'm pretty sure he has his own Wi-Fi now as his music is once again blaring. I'm also pretty sure he is planning something because I was just outside with my dog and girlfriend, and he was recording us through the window on his phone. I'm not really sure where to go from here as I cannot move just yet. So I think I'm going to talk to some people to see what I can do from this point forward.